What's up, YouTube? It's Kevin here, the Migraine Guy. Going to continue the series on what to expect when you go to see a doctor. Today's specific kind of doctor is going to be a neurologist. Uh, Now, I haven't seen a lot of neurologists. In fact, I've only seen the one about my migraines. So I'm obviously speaking from very limited experience. I'm not trying to paint all neurologists with the same brush that I'm going to describe the one I went to. But I assume that neurologists to some degree are going to have similarities in what they're looking for, some commonalities in their methodology. So as usual, if you have a different experience, please write it in the comments. Let us know what your experience was, if it was better or worse than how I'm going to describe mine. All that's very helpful. So here we go. So I got to see a neurologist after probably 4 to 6 months going to the general practitioner at the university clinic I went to. And the general practitioner, though he was trying to be helpful, was just kind of running down a list of medications and, giving those to me for 2 weeks at a time and then switching to a different medication when the previous one didn't work. And once we reached the bottom list of the medication, he just, kind of did the doctor shrug. It's just like, well, I gave medication. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. That might be a bit of a caricature, but it's not too far off of his response. I'm not a big fan of that doctor. And so he said, sounds like you need to get in with the neurologist on campus. The guy that I saw came once every 2 weeks. He was visiting from the bigger city up the road. So I had to wait a bit to get in to see him, but I finally got in. So what can you expect when you get in to see a neurologist? Well, they're going to do, some simple tests with you, right? They're going to be touching your feet, they're going to be touching your arms, they're going to be doing resistance tests. They're going to have you walk in front of them to check for imbalances. See if there's anything that's an indicate, and this is the big thing. They're checking to see if they can justify to an insurance company paying for you to get an MRI. Right? Because that's kind of the end-all be-all now, right? MRIs are the king of the scans, basically, especially with brain conditions. So if you exhibit any symptoms, right, like numbness on part of your body, maybe blocked vision in part of your visual field, and maybe when you walk, right, you kind of act like you're going to tip over to one side, those are indicators to some degree that there might be something wrong, right? There might be something wrong with your brain. And the migraine might just be a symptom of a worse underlying issue. So if they notice those things, then they can write up or their medical, what's the word? Their medical. There's a title for people who write up stuff for insurance companies. I can't remember what it is. Coder, medical coder, maybe. They can write it up so that the insurance company is seeing that there are symptoms that justify an MRI, because MRIs, are $1,500 to $2,500 per one, depending on how long you want it to be and how in depth you want the scan to get. And we all know insurance companies aren't super interested in helping people as much as they are in making money. So the neurologist's job is to see if what you exhibit behaviorally is worth the insurance company paying for the MRI. So of course, knowing this, if you went in to see a neurologist and kind of faked it in order to get an MRI because maybe you're highly concerned, I guess that's how you would do it. I certainly wouldn't endorse that kind of behavior, but that's the kind of things that they're looking for, which is important. Because, if you're like me, you go to the neurologist, right, which is a fancy kind of brain title, and you're thinking, like, I get really bad migraines, I'm seeing a neurologist, I must have a tumor. I mean, we all have family members probably that have had a brain tumor, and so you're like, oh, yeah, there's heredity, and I'm getting these symptoms, so it's got to be a brain tumor, life's over. The neurologist for me was very kind. He did all the examinations and stuff. And at the end of the day, he's like, you're too healthy for the MRI. I can't justify it to the insurance company. He actually said this. He said 20 years ago, 30 years ago, his job was to try and help patients. He said today, his job is to be a salesman. He has to sell the justifiability of certain procedures for patients and to insurance companies. And he said I just didn't have enough to sell. I was too healthy, which is great. You know, nobody wants a brain tumor, but he also didn't have an answer for the migraines. He looked at the medications that I had been through, saw that none of them had really put a dent in the frequency or intensity of the migraines. He took a look at kind of the notations that I had brought him of, you know, no changes in my dietary stuff, no changes in stress levels, no changes in this, that, and that, to show that there wasn't probably an environmental or contextual factor to my migraines. So at the end of the visit, he said, well, you don't exhibit any neurological problems that I can notice. You don't seem to have any environmental or contextual reasons to have sparked your migraines, and you have gone through nearly every medication I would prescribe. So what did he say to do? He said, well, you should get a sleep study done. A sleep study, which, granted, I know I don't sleep well, and sleeping well would probably help some of the migraines. But I've slept like crap for a long time, and I only, in the time frame that I saw the neurologist, had the migraines intensely for months now, but nothing else had changed, including sleep. So the idea of getting a sleep study to me seemed like an absurd thing to tell me. I was willing to do it, of course. Anything could potentially help. But it just seemed like such a BS way to end the meeting, right? You go there and, you know, he has his checklists. He goes through everything, and when nothing's left unchecked, he just passes it off to somebody else. Which I'm not blaming him. There's only so much anybody can do for anybody else. It just, for me, in my mind, I was like, God, this sucks, right? Like, you go to the neurologist, and that's kind of like the end-all, be-all doctor for brain issues, right? You're like, that's what you do, bro. You study the brain. And his answer was, well, go to someone else. So I never did get the sleep study done. The one offhanded comment he had was something like, well, if you have sleep apnea, then that could prevent you from getting good night's sleep, which might be the cause of your headaches. But like I said, you know, I've slept like crap for, you know, a decade, and only recently started getting the really intense migraines. So like, what changed to get the migraines to start now versus previously when nothing else had changed, including sleep? And he didn't have an answer, and so it just seemed like he had nothing to offer me. So I haven't gone back to see him because I don't have any reason to. But yeah, so when you go to see a neurologist, that's the kind of things you can expect. Just like when you go see your general practitioner, right, you want to make sure that you bring in like all of the answers to the questions he's going to want. So things about dietary changes, things about stress levels, things about sleep. That way you can paint an overall picture of your health for the doctor, and they can try to isolate any variables that they think are worth looking at. Yeah, so that's that. Nothing too fancy. And I guess catch you later, guys.